Hello, it's time for the spiritual light. Good evening, everybody. It's 9 o'clock here in Ireland and 10 o'clock in France for Charles, and it's time for our weekly show. And today, as we announced last week, we will wrap up the series of talking in regarding to preventing of the suicide or suicide prevention. And today topic is the what's the real meaning of life. So this is we will kind of summarize everything we have discussed in the past 3 weeks, and I hope you enjoyed this time and stay with us and send your questions, your messages. So we gladly reply and clear up any other doubts. So, good evening, Miss Gibbons. How are you, my dear?
Hello, good evening, Stevan. Good evening, Charles. Good evening, everyone that will be watching us. I am very well, thank you, and hope everyone is well. As you said, today we're discussing, sort of going back to things we discussed this in the last 3 weeks, and to conclude a series of talks on Yellow September. So hope everyone, is there, participates, send us their message, their questions, and good evening, everyone, and many blessings.
Brilliant. Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Steven. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Indeed, I'm also very happy to be here again with you, like every week since how much? 3 years, 4 years? Quite some time, let's say. And it's always a big pleasure for us to help and to share these thoughts, to give a little bit food for our thoughts, for seeking the meaning of life, and enabling us to walk towards happiness.
Good, good. So, in order to just to kick off our discussion today, let me give you a kind of brief introduction. And as we know, Spiritism is a philosophical and spiritual teachings, and explores the nature of the soul. The nature of the soul explores the purpose of life, explore the relationship between the material and the spiritual world. And everything we discuss here, everything we support us are teachings codified by Allan Kardec in the 19th century. So Spiritism emphasizes the spiritual evolution through reincarnation, the importance of moral development, and the correlation between all beings. And through this lens, life is seen not as a random occurrence, but as an opportunity for continuous spiritual progression. So, this is my short uh, introduction, and I'd like to kick off this discussion, asking Charles, what is the primary purpose of life according to Spiritism?
Yeah, it's indeed a good question, and what we can ask ourselves is who, at some point in time in their life, did never ask themselves, "Why I'm here? What am I? Where do I come from? Where do I go to? It's exactly this question that you asked. Does God exist? If yes, is it really what we are presenting us? Or is it something else? Huh? Uh, and these are the basic, fundamental, philosophical questions that we are asking. So it's a very, very wide question. So it's very hard to answer in a summary. I think you introduced it quite well. The main purpose of life, which means life, is the progress of the soul. So for this, to understand this, one must first convince the people who are listening us that we are not a machine. We are not result of deterministic or random biochemical reaction in our brain. Our conscience is much more than that. There is something in ourselves which is called the soul and which does exist before our physical body and which continues existing after our death. So that's the first fundamental point in order to understand better of life. Because what would be the meaning of life according to the materialist paradigm? Okay, I have only one life, it is short, I have to make use of it as much as I can, whatever it may cost, whatever it may give prejudice to my neighbors or whoever. My only limits are the justice and the fear to go to jail or whatsoever. But okay, does this make sense? If we don't have a soul, we are just a machine. We are not even an animal. An animal has also a soul. They governed by instincts rather than by intelligence. So it's exactly what you have said, Stevan. The purpose of life, the purpose of our soul incarnating in physical body is to progress intellectually. For this, we have education, we have schools, we have studies, we have books, we have teaching, we have lives like this we are having. But to progress also morally or ethically, if you prefer, to become every time, every day, every life, a little bit a better person. Our Earth is unfortunately not, let's say, in the ranking of evolution of worlds, is not the highest. At the opposite, is one of the lowest. And that's why here on Earth, we still have situations where the evil or bad things or wars or violence or corruption, misery or whatever has still a very big occurrence. And the purpose is, the destiny of our world is to change this. And that's why we have to work incessantly in order to disseminate ideas of peace, ideas of non-violence, also this do unto the other what you would like the other to do unto you, to fight against selfishness, to fight against excessive pride when we think we are more or better than the others or whatever, and to cultivate the values which are the opposite of those, which is humility, fraternity, abnegation, peacefulness, willing good, which is basically today can be summarized as spiritual intelligence, which is a new concept who appeared some decade or something ago, and which is gaining more and more importance. We see that there is a push right now towards ethics. Okay, there is IA, but we cannot let IA do whatever. We have to make a law in order to determine what IA can do and cannot do. It's one example. When you work in private companies even, there are generally always some rules about health, safety, and compliance. So it's the same. And these points are getting more and more important Why? Because it's coming from our feelings. It's innate in us to claim for those values. So this is exactly the purpose of life, to work that we personally get better, and thus leading by example, helping our whole society, our neighbors, and then the whole society to also get better, to have a better world, sustainable, stop overconsumption, destructing, putting carbon into the atmosphere and whatever, that we see the consequences right now, and cultivate other values than the pure material values, knowing that one day we will die. As spiritists, we say we will discarnate. Or we can even say our soul will be freed from our physical body and return free into the spiritual world. And at that moment, as I several times repeated in these lives, we will not take with us anything material. We will only take with us all the qualities of our soul and our conscience, whether it is good or whether we have bad conscience. That is what we will take to the other world. And there is no other judge when we arrive there in the spiritual world than our own conscience. It is our own conscience we will judge us. What did we do in our life? Did we use our life to make good? Did we help people who were in pain, who were crying, whatever? Did we bring consolation to those people? Did we help something? Did we do something useful? This will be the questions that our own conscience will ask us, and not who you were, what diploma you had, how many money you had on the bank, because all this anyhow stays here. When you go to the other side, we are really what we are. There is no mask anymore, nothing. We are totally transparent. The people, some spirits say even, my soul is naked in the spiritual world. This means you cannot hide your thoughts, whatever you think, whatever you are, is totally transparent. So what is the purpose of life? Okay, let's prepare for this situation, knowing that our soul has a potential for infinite progress. And this progress is always positive, or at the worst case, we remain stationary. And in the best case, we are really rising towards what is beautiful, what is good, what is happiness, coming closer to God somehow, which is all this at an infinite level. So this is the purpose of life. So of course there are many other questions linked to that. Okay, but why do I suffer in this life? If the purpose of life is to progress, why so much suffering on the life? And it's also a very an excellent, pertinent question. When we think about suffering, when everything is okay, we are not incentivized to do efforts, are we? No, everything is okay, I'm quiet, I can relax, whatsoever. But when I'm facing challenges, when I'm facing difficulties, when I'm facing, for instance, an illness, when I'm facing trials which can bring or not suffering, there, yes, I do efforts in order to cure, in order to prevent, in order to find solutions, in order to overcome these difficulties. So with this effort, this effort is really what is the most efficient to foster our evolution, the evolution of our soul. And when you look, all the big souls, these missionaries, these big people who came to the earth in order to, as a mission, like Martin Luther King, Gandhi, whoever, all them, Mandela, all them had big periods of suffering, and that's why at the end they were so great. They did such fantastic work here on Earth, such fantastic mission, who were game changers into our societies. Just about Martin Luther King, I have a dream when we talked about a black as an American president. It happened already. Maybe now there will be even a colored woman as a president in US. So you see, I also Silvia, I like also John Lennon. You may say I'm a dreamer. Then I answer, but I'm not the only one. And one day you will join us. So that is the purpose of life. Everything positive. Trials. One characteristic of spiritual intelligence is exactly to make positive and useful use of the adversity. This is spiritual intelligence. And when we discover that and we manage to do it once or twice, you will see you discover something which is absolutely fantastic and which gives you a huge strength for coping, for overcoming every type of difficulties. You may say, for instance, to me, hey, Charles, sorry, you have a disease, you will die maximum in 2 years. What shall I do? Cry?
Yeah.
Stop fighting? Stop talking to you here? Never, ever. I will be happy. Okay, I have 2 years before being freed from my physical body. You see,
Yeah.
everything you can see everything in a positive manner. And this gives you a huge strength. I had cancer already. So far, it's remission, more than 10 years now. When the doctor looked to my eyes, oh, I don't have a good news. And I was smiling to him. This is what you have to try to do. And the fact you cope, you take this positively as a challenge to overcome, gives you 10 times more chances that you succeed to overcome than when you say, oh, no, I'm finished, I'm everything, I'm crying and whatever, because there you lose completely all your mean, all your strengths. So, okay, yes, we can. We shall do it. So let's go.
Good. Wonderful. So, yeah, indeed, we needed to make. That's what the people say. We need to make a lemonade out of the lemons they throw on us. Yeah.
Get the
So,
lemon to and make a lemonade.
yeah,
Yeah. If you have lemons, you make lemonade.
exactly. Yeah. My dear Silvia, a quick and easy question for you.
Okay. Just
What is
wanna
the
know.
role of free will in Spiritism understanding of life?
The role of free will. Is that what you
Yes.
want?
Yeah. What's the role of the free will in the concept of Spiritism?
Well, I think in Spiritism, the explanation of free will is extremely important and also quite something to meditate on because God has given us free will to make our choices, to make our decisions, to so we can ourselves decide what we do with our lives. And as we go on in life, as we learn, we can look back and say, oh, I made a good choice. So we can have that, maybe that honor, that pleasure to say, I've made a good decision of my life. But then sometimes we make, decisions that are not so good. They are, we make poor choices in life, either because of ignorance, that we don't know any better, or because of pride sometimes intervenes in what we want to do, or we procrastinate, whatever reason we make, something that's wrong. And that's where it's very important because there is nothing, that's wrong, because if you can learn from a lesson that something that you did, a choice that you made was not as good as you wanted, the consequences of it were poor and it was not. But if we can learn from that lesson, if we can learn from that mistake, it's also very productive, because most times we learn much more when we make mistakes and oh gosh, we stop to think the consequences of what we've done, how we can improve, how we can do better in the future. Sometimes are more valued lessons, when we make mistakes. But I think one of the things that to me is very, very interesting in Spiritism is that nothing is forbidden. We have our free will, we have a choice, we can do whatever we like. There is nothing, within Spirit says, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can do whatever you like, but you have to be prepared to face the consequences of whatever you like. And I think this is a very grown-up way of looking at something, because when we can stop to think, yes, I'm free to do what I want to do, but life goes on, and how I'm going to be in 5 years time, what is going to cause, what this decision I take now, what is going to do, not only for myself but for the people around me, for my family, for my friends, what the consequence for the world at large of what I'm doing. And I think it's a much more in a way grown up way of looking at things, because we can measure before we can do anything. We stop to think, and will I be able to cope if this goes wrong? And it doesn't mean that this will hold you back from doing whatever, or for fear of something, but it will make you think and make better decisions. And even if we don't, if the decision we think is the best, because sometimes I don't think anyone really starts out saying, I'm going to do something wrong. Maybe with the best of intentions. Don't they say, isn't there that expression, say the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Sometimes we mean to do good, but we don't measure out the consequence. We don't know how, the reaction of other people, what's going to happen for us, or the consequences of everything. So I think if we stop to think, we can do something. And if we make a mistake, we can learn from it. And I think the free will, I personally think that our free will, there is boundaries to the amount of free will that we have, because if you think about, I can never remember the name of the question in the Spirit's book, but Kardec asked the Spirits, will every man be enlightened, and the answer from the Spirits, which is always very short, very objective, very clear to the point, is that it's your destiny. So even though sometimes we are, we make mistakes, our pride holds, moves us back from the direction that God gave us, and we be millennia, in the dark areas of the spiritual world, but eventually we will come to the light. There is no other path for a human being, even though it can take millennia, but there is only one way to be back to God, into God's fold, because we are created, by God as beings of light. The Spirit is the light principle of the universe, the spiritual principle, is the light. We are beings of light. It's still very much held out and hidden, and making our choices and being polished and moving on, and making poor choices, making good ones. Sometimes we go 2 steps forward, 1 back. That's how life is, and that's how we learn. And when we are in the spiritual world, all the people around us will be more or less the same level as we are. So we have opportunities to go to school, to learn, to do other things. But it is here on earth where we tested whatever we learned in the spiritual world. It is here in the anvil of the earth with the other human beings, the fellow beings, that we actually learn. We learn to be compassionate, to be understanding, to be loving, to be caring, to let go of pride and selfishness, and a lot of things, because those are the things that holds us back. And to be giving. And so eventually we will be there. We'll be spirits of light. And within these two boundaries, we can do whatever we like and make the choices we like. And I always think that, we human beings, we are like this diamond, in this rock. And unless someone is an expert in gems and everything, you would not recognize, because it's just a rock like any other. But it's only when it's polished, and the only thing that polishes diamond is another diamond, that you have the light within, it comes out and shines. And I think that's how our soul is. And of course, the drill that we have, our relationship with the other human beings in our choices in life, and the choices we make and what we do, because whatever we do to others, we do to ourselves. It will always come back to us, whether it's good or bad. It will always return. It's like that thing, from Australia. Forget the name now. Boomerang. Is it boomerang that you throw and it comes back? So it's like all our actions are like that. So if we do good, if we find, it comes back. And if we don't, and sometimes you do good to other people, you help them and sustain them, and they don't say thank you, they move on. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that what we do, and first of all, if we do good, we feel better. And, we always will find someone who will help us. Also, I think that one of the things of free will as well is to find a purpose in life. I think Charles was talking a little bit about that, because, we need to have a meaning. We need to have something that we think that is important for us to do. Find anything that it makes you feel happy. Whether it's your job, your profession, what you're working on, or something. We need, I think there is this quote from Nietzsche that he says, if we have a meaning, we can bear almost anything, because we have a name. And I think we who accept the idea that God exists, that there is a purpose for us, for our lives in this planet, why we came here, what are we doing here? And that's how Charles started. And I think, a lot of people do ask. I remember when I was a teenager, I had a very strange group of friends. But we used to spend the whole Sunday, the whole weekend sometimes, think, why am I here? What are we doing here? What's the purpose of life? Why do you think, where did we come from? Where are we going back? We used to discuss this thing, when I was 15, 16, with some of these friends I had. And that's the thing as well. The day I found the Spirit's book and I opened it after many, many years, since all those questions we were asking. And suddenly I found all the answers there. Literally every question I had ever asked. And, we had to discuss for long, long days in my young days. And oh my God, look at this, that's the answer. So I found in Spiritism the answer, the meaning for my life. And, people will have different ones, of course, but that's the purpose. That's what we are having. And the free will lead us to make the choices so we can be responsible for the actions we take. And this is very important because, as I said, we are spirits of light on way to become completed and purified, and our light will be shining through. And then we say, yes, I'm here, I've achieved this because I've done, all that. So you have as well your responsibility and the sense of achievement that will give for what you've done throughout. So it's very valid thing.
See, easy question.
Very easy.
Yes. Good.
Bit winded after the answer, but
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. Good evening, Lou. Thank you for having us. So, yeah, it's important. So, we had two special guests, Edir Paixão and Karen Dietrich last week, in which both uh, run, um, they have a role in the society in order to prevent suicide, and the other is ambassador of life. So we do have support when we will try to look for it, and but always the first step must be done by ourselves. And most of the times we think is the other way around. They need to approach us. And my takeaway was always the first step is on us. Um, and I want to say, um, uh, Charles, saying that, what is the significance of charity and love in Spiritism?
Yeah. Love, the significance is basically the significance of love in the teachings we received 2000 years ago. Love God above all, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So indeed, the verb love is, a lot of people have, well, it's even some material love, sexuality or stuff like that. It's understood in very different ways. But the love, according to the Spiritist body of knowledge, is exactly this action to put us in harmony with the natural laws. And also another criteria that has been given to us by Jesus is do unto the other what you would like him to do unto you, even if he doesn't. This is really an excellent definition of love, because we take as a criteria of what we should do to our neighbor what we would like for us. So that's one of the most genial definition of love. And it is universal, because as I told it already, you have the same sentence or very similar sentence in the basic rules of all the religions. So I cited the case of Jesus, but you have it in the Quran, you have it in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Taoism. You have it everywhere. Everywhere you have the same sentence. So all these people who came giving all these teachings at the basics of all the religion, they agree among themselves, between themselves, on the definition of what is love. So, and the Spiritist body of knowledge is, of course, totally in line with this. Now we talk about charity. So charity is somehow, love is more a sentiment, but the charity is, as per the Spiritist definition, which is because the charity in English is mostly about charity organization for bring food or money. It's one form of the charity. But the charity, according to the Spiritist body of knowledge, it's more than the material charity. It's also the moral charity, is which can be summarized by three words, which is benevolence, so willing good to everyone, to the world, to the nature, to the animals, whatever. Indulgence. Why? Because we have all imperfections. So I'm not perfect. I have some defects, and some people may hate me. There are people who hate me. That's okay. That's it. But if we don't have indulgence towards the imperfection we have, all of us, how can we do something together? If I would not be indulgent to the defects of Stevan and of Silvia, how could we do this spiritual light together? We couldn't. So indulgence is absolutely necessary to join and for working towards good and for doing charity. And then you have a third, which is forgiveness. Why? Because since we are imperfect, sometimes we make wrong things which may harm another or a neighbor or you or whoever. So this is also natural because of our imperfections. So again, if because of one wrong thing someone or some other did, you don't forgive and you exclude this person definitively, you will never also be capable to work and to do something together with that person. Of course, forgiveness is how to say, Jesus told also, love your enemies. So it's something very difficult to understand, but it's how to say, the next step. You have an enemy. So this enemy is really willing bad things, wishing bad things for you. If you love or if you pray for this enemy, for instance, you may have a chance that your prayer works. So if your prayer works, he will stop being your enemy and it will go into this step of forgiveness. So you have an action who will fix the problem and you will have an enemy less. What should we do now, for instance, in Israel or Palestine or whatever? They should really come to say that stop the violence, let's forgive ourselves, and let's try to live together, Israeli state, Palestine state, in harmony and in peace. So this needs charity, it needs benevolence, it needs indulgence, and it needs forgiveness. So with charity, we solve almost all the problems we have on the world. So that's basically the definition of love and of charity as per the Spiritist body of knowledge, knowing that it's up to each of us. We have the free will. Nobody can love, nobody can forgive, nobody can be indulgent at our place. It's something that we have to build and to work into ourselves according to the will. And the will is really one of the biggest force, the biggest power of our soul. And this is what we have to use in order to make us better and to make this world better.
Simple like that.
So what are we waiting for?
Huh?
And I think one of the things that Charles was saying that is very important, because sometimes we think about prayers in a sense of, if you're religious, if you believe in God, you pray and everything. But I think one of the things that are missed is that when you actually pray, our thoughts are extremely powerful, are creative. So when we send prayers to someone, the vibrations that go towards them are good. It makes you feel, when someone prays for you, send you good thoughts, you feel happy, you feel well, there's a sense of well-being that comes to you. And sometimes you think about that person and said, oh, God, please bless them, involve them in your love and peace. And you're sending good vibrations. And I think what happens when we do that, we raise our own vibrations. So if someone does not like you, and for whatever reason, and even if you've done something and you're able to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, and I'm asking forgiveness, whatever, and the person does not want to accept and insists in being your enemy and sending you bad thoughts, but because you pray for them, your heart is pure, you're sending them a lot of positive, loving vibrations, you raise your own. So all the negative thoughts that will be flowing underneath will not reach you. And the best way sometimes to keep an enemy away from you is actually pray for them, and really truly ask with all the faith in your heart for God to bless them, to keep them safe, to send them love and understanding. And you are here. And if they accept, yes, you become friends. Like Jesus said, you go and talk to your enemy while you can, and then you can be an enemy. But if they don't, you vibrate up here and they vibrate down. So, they can no longer harm you. And, sometimes we think things are simple, but those things are so important and they are so real. I have more than one occasions in which I prayed for people who were being a bit nasty to me. And was completely different because I felt different. That feeling of unpleasantness, and it moved, it was lifted up. So I didn't think about them and I think that's some practice we need to do, because the forgiveness is not for the other people, it's for ourselves. And I think, one of the most important lessons of the gospel, it's something I always meditate on and I think about, is that when all those people full of hunger and hatred and self-righteousness, because I think that's one of the things, when they bring that woman to Jesus saying she's an adulterer, because she was married and she was got with another man, and they come with all the rocks and the stones in their hands, and they keep saying to him, they ask Jesus, Master, what shall we say? She was caught in the act, and the law says that we have to stone her. And, and Jesus just calmly just writes on the floor, doesn't, and they kept insisting. And his answer, he just says very quietly, he among you who have no sin, be the first one to throw a stone at her. And what he did, he gave them back their own, so an opportunity for each and every one of them to look at their own conscience. And none of them could feel that they could stone anyone, because they themselves could be stoned by what they have done, whatever it was. And I think sometimes as well, being, in the seat of self-righteousness, because the law says, without compassion, without understanding, this lesson is always very important. And it's interesting that, then everybody goes, of course, because when they look at their own conscience, they knew they couldn't really accuse anyone. And then Jesus asked the woman, where are your accusers? And she said, they've gone. And he said, so I will not accuse you either. Go and sin no more. And this is, I find this amazing, so powerful, this, especially when you start thinking, oh, that person is wrong, they deserve this. And we need to stop and think, oh, am I so pure that I can judge anyone? And I think this should be a measure, I think, sometimes for ourselves. because everyone has something that they, like I think both of you today have said at some point, oh, you're not pure yet. And the purest will have more understanding. And I think this is a way to measure our own reaction in relation and not to judge anyone, because our own conscience, we call. And it's very interesting, the story, because Divaldo Franco, and there is a spirit he writes with Amélia Rodrigues. They actually write the continuation of the story from the gospel, because the woman goes back home. And when she goes home, she meets her husband, because he found out that she was being stoned. So he was going to come. And then, they meet, they go home, and he said, I am to blame because, I had done wrong. And, you were done wrong as well, because someone, just tried to play with your head and everything. And they moved out of that town. They moved away. They made a house somewhere, and they started helping people with leprosy. And they made like an inn where people could come, because if anybody had diseases in those days, they would have to go to the camp. There's no one to treat them. And so the two of them actually made this inn, this house where people could come and rest and stay there. And that's how their life ended, helping others and being the two of the husband and wife, which I thought was such a beautiful story, a new opportunity for both of them, and I think that's what we need to give, not only but to ourselves as well, because we can only love others in this extent that we love ourselves. So give ourselves as well, some compassion. You have to be compassionate with yourself to be able to be compassionate at that. And even if you made a terrible mistake, you can always readdress it and do right. And that's, I think, the purpose of life. And, thinking about this month, Yellow September, and the number of people who lose their lives without realizing maybe what they are doing, is something to stop and think about. There is always something better to come. It's not the end. Whatever suffering, whatever pain we are going through, it will pass. It will go. And there will be new opportunities, new new people will come into our lives, and new opportunities, if we only give the opportunity and the chance to ourselves to hold on to life, to have hope a little more. I think that's what is very important, to hold on and to really have hope and get meaning, because life is very, very precious. We should hold on to it as long as possible, because some of us, and I think all of us, really have worked hard to be able to reincarnate, because there are 3 times more spirits than people incarnated, so to come here is an opportunity, and to have to see the meaning of life. That's joyful, that's important, that's a lesson. And I know that some people have terrible lives, and I think about the hostages all the time, send them prayers every day, and to their families as well. I can imagine what they must be going through. But I pray that they have hope, that they will be released. And I think that's hold on to life as long as possible, and don't waste yours. If you can, ask for help and reach out, because it's important. And there is, everything must pass, and there is always something new, something good that will come in our way if we trust it. So there we are.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's important to emphasize, we we need to feel comfortable, whatever we are. We need to feel comfortable. If we're going to a church, if we're going to a spirit center, if we're going to a temple, if we're going to contemplate the nature, doesn't matter. We need to be okay with ourselves. And we need to keep us tuned with good vibrations. The first thing, when we are faced a challenge, the first thing we blame, it is everybody else except ourselves. We point the fingers to everybody except to say, well, I screw up. I dropped the ball here. And this is the kind of self-analysis we ask everyone to do whenever it's possible. You are going through problems. This shall pass. But what's your role in this problem you are facing? What do you need to do? What you did to face that problem? What do you need to improve? Because sometimes problem is not always negative. It's just to awake some skills that is hidden in ourselves and we don't have it yet. If we are in a very good phase, this shall pass as well. And what you did to deserve that? What do you want to do what do you want to repeat in order to keep this moment, at least if it is gonna pass, what you need to do in order to prolong, to extend as much as you can. And killing yourself, you are not giving you a chance to do this kind of reflection. As we said here, as our two guys said, they don't want to, the person who committed suicide, they don't want to kill himself, they just want to stop the pain. So keep this in your mind, that always someone ready to listen to you, in a spirit center, in a church, in a Buddhist temple, in the Samaritans, in the all those non-organizations, entities. Always we have someone with time and ears to listen us. But the first step, it's upon you. Okie doke. Final words, Charles. Final words, Silvia.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, life is a gift. There is no problem without solution. On top of this, the Spiritist body of knowledge teaches us that we have always a very dear, close friend which is permanently with us, having for us an unconditional true love, which is our spiritual mentor, our guardian angel. huh? So even if you are not medium, huh, talk to him, ask him, ask him, for instance, before you go asleep, help me, give me some hints to overcome this difficult situation I'm passing. And the next day in the morning, ah, huh, the night is counseling, as sometimes we hear, la nuit porte conseil in French. And this is always with you to help you, and in particular when you are in difficult suffering, passing through these more difficult trials and pain, as Stevan told, and I would add suffering, which is consequent to pain. So you are never ever alone. You have a lot of incarnated people, but you have also some spiritual friends which are here to help you.
Good. And then final words, my dear Silvia.
Yes, it's just, and continue what Charles is saying. Never lose hope. Never lose hope, because there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and we go through difficulties. That's part of life. And sometimes when we understand as well that when we were born, before we're born, we asked to go through certain difficulties, makes you more understanding. And never ever ever lose hope. We always have someone, and like Charles said, we all have a guardian angel. Talk to him, listen to his advice, because everything, there is an end for everything. And it's just a passage, isn't it? It's just, when you think that the spirit is eternal, is immortal, only the physical body dies, the spirit will live on with the lessons that we've learned. And if we were able to have resignation and patience and really hold on, we'll feel so much better, because in a future there'll be less pain, less difficulty, if we can, bear it with courage this time round. So don't lose hope. There is always a light, and there is always a helping hand reaching out for all of us. So, God is there.
Always. Always. Okay, this is it for us today. Let me share the topic for next week. And it is here. Okay, next week, spirituality and health, spiritual intelligence. Already October, so prepare my Christmas present. I'm asking 3 months before. So we are walking towards of the end of the year, my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This year has just gone so fast, hasn't it?
We already completed, we almost completed 3/4 of the year.
Oh, yes. I mean, a couple more months and we are Christmas. Ooh.
Exactly. So, okay. Thank you, Lou. Thank you for staying with us. So, I'll see you next week, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you.
I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bye, Lou. Thank you very much. God bless.